Welcome back, everybody, to the CultureVerse Podcast. Today's episode, we're going to be reviewing two newer movies, including Heart Eyes and The Monkey, both horror films that have been popular recently. But we're going to go ahead and do Heart Eyes first since it came out earlier, and then we will do The Monkey afterwards. But in terms of order, it will be going me, Caleb, Jack, Tyler. And yeah, no current events. We're just getting right into the movie. Tyler, I'm so
Ooh.
sorry. It,
It's okay. It's okay.
it'll
I'll get
be
through it.
it'll be okay. We'll get through it. Okay, well, let's just jump right in then. Let's start with our heart eyes. Yeah, so like I said, I'll be going first. So, I started off by writing, oh wow. I mean, wow. What the hell was that? I assumed this was going to be not very good. However, apparently I should have set my expectations a little bit lower. This movie was a cliche, uninteresting slasher that was filled to the brim with corny lines, uncreative action for the most part. There was some good stuff, and then an incredibly unnecessary romantic tone that took over most of the film. This was supposed to be a slasher movie surrounded around Valentine's Day. That whole concept was like that he kills couples, and it felt like it was 80% of a romance film with a slasher involved here and there, and that was just not something that I was expecting or something that I enjoyed at all. Um, Not to mention another issue was the amount of just idiotic things that took place. There were just too many to count. However, as I say, there was too many to count. I did write some down. First off, one of my biggest complaints in movies in general, but this one was bad, was the bad aim cliche. There were two moments that stood out particularly in this film. The first one being when Allie shot the glass of the interrogation room, and then the killer just stood there and looked at her and accepted his death, and she missed every single shot. So much to the point that the director actually outlined bullet holes around the killer. If you see, you can see bullet holes. And her reasoning is, I'm a really bad shot.
I mean, she
Oh,
was.
right. Yeah, you can't, that is the worst. That's just
It,
whatever the opposite of absolute cinema is, that's what that was. And then the second time was actually arguably worse. It was at the end when David and Detective Gene have Allie and Jay captured, and David is forced to pull his gun, in which he shoots at Allie, who is hardly moving, and he releases about, I don't know, half a clip into her pretty much, except not into her. He completely misses. He is essentially a trained serial killer at this point. He's killed many people, and he just misses every shot. And the thing that upsets me is this isn't lazy writing. Lazy writing would be if for some reason, like he pulls out his gun and it's having an issue or there's no bullets. They willingly chose to write this in and write, we should just have a miss every single shot, even though she's crawling on the ground and an easy shot. And he just blatantly cannot hit any of the shots. I mean, that's just bad writing. Um, in my opinion, this movie was just a bad blend of genres. The point of this killer movie, like I said, is that he's trying to ruin Valentine's Day by taking out couples. So obviously, I expected a tone of romance, but I expected it to be a slasher with romantic tones here and there. And this was, to me, way heavier on the romance than I was expecting. There were far too many moments in this film where you're kind of just sitting here like, why am I watching a rom-com right now? And then the slasher shows up and does a couple killing for like 5, 10 minutes, and then you're back to this romance between Allie and Jay, which I just got sick of nonstop. And the romance is pretty much responsible for every single cringy, bad line of dialogue, which you would expect it to be. It's just like the most cliche writing you could think of. But there were a couple funny moments in this movie, mostly coming from Mason Gooding, which was the actor who played Jay. He was pretty good, I suppose. He wasn't bad. But for the most part, I just found this to be a very uninteresting film and all around a flop between the two genres.
My turn?
Yep, your turn.
Okay. Yeah, I this was an interesting one for me because as this movie I think it gives itself away pretty easily. To where when I even texted you guys that message when I was jealous that you guys are watching them back to back, that I was to me it reveals itself as corny early. And I think it's corny in a way that since it knows it's corny, I think it was more fun for me than maybe you guys had with this movie. Um, it reminded me a lot of when we went and saw Thanksgiving. But again, this movie is one of those seasonal slashers kind of thing. Um, so I'll just kind of dig in my review here. So I thought this was a fun time, all good things considered. I'll get into my cons. I think for the most part we're gonna be on the same page, and I think we probably all will be on the same page to where it's like, look, this movie isn't winning an Oscar, or it's not a great movie. Like I think it's just, but that I feel like that's the point. So I thought it was fun. I thought it was a movie that was not taking itself too seriously. I thought it had some good laughs. I thought there was some humor to it. There was decent moments for me in this movie. I thought some of the kills were pretty solid, and they're not like some elite slasher or anything, but they were entertaining. Just if they weren't, if they weren't creative, I thought it would have been completely terrible. Um, so there's that. I thought the acting was nothing spectacular, but I thought they fit the written roles effectively, and I thought they were charming. At least the chemistry was cheesily believable. Like it's not like The Notebook to where it's like your heart is wrenched when something gets thrown in between them. It was just kind of like this is like a teen romance kind of thing where it was just like it's supposed to be cheesy. Like it's Cuba Gooding's son. Like he's not like a known actor. It's a he's just like
I
a
just figured that
heartthrob.
out.
Yeah, he's like a heartthrob. Like
Thanks,
that's his
Caleb.
career. No
That
problem.
that makes a lot of sense now.
Um, the jump scare scene in the closet scene that was pretty good. I can't lie. That part I actually was like, jeez, when when she opens the closet and he's in there for the well, he's her
Oh,
for the first. That was actually decent. I was like, holy! I did not because I remember that was in the trailer, but I completely forgot about that. Um, that was a good scare.
I remember being confused during that too, because I was like, why? Why is he
Yeah,
here already?
that
What?
but that was a
What
good
it?
jump scare. I could have actually gotten. They did not, especially because it goes with the intimate scene right before. Like it's that was pretty good writing. It was just like you're like intimate scene, and then it's that jump scare that was pretty good. And on top of that, I thought the carousel scene was pretty good. I felt unique for the most part. Like it actually played out pretty well, in my opinion. Um, so there was that scene, and then the twist. It did kind of get me. I thought it was very Thanksgiving esque, but it at least was it was something. It didn't play out awkward to me. I thought that the twist was all right. It was fine. Um, as for my cons, we all know this isn't exactly a film of the year type of movie. It's silly. It's too silly sometimes, and it's going to take some stars away. It's just one of those movies to where it's not like supposed to be a drama Oscar bait type of movie. But it is too silly sometimes. I completely agree with that. The dialogue was funny at moments, but woefully corny at some points. It was pretty bad. Game, you're right. It is cliche at moments. Like that's kind of the point. But again, the whole thing with this movie is where it teeters on the line of being fun, but also like doing too much. And I think that's the biggest downside to this movie is like Thanksgiving was better. Spoiler. Thanksgiving was better at like being kind of serious to where the point where it was like could sell you on some stuff. This movie was like basically that, but if it was completely silly instead of any form of serious at all. So there's that. Small moment here. I thought. Let me reread this really quick. Oh yeah. Small moment here, but bigger in the full scale of the movie. Why would she kiss him at the restaurant after she goes after she literally expresses the fact that like she says she like doesn't believe in love or anything, and then she doesn't see the ex before she does it. So it's like if she had seen the if we had seen the ex before, um, it would have made a little more sense that she kisses him, but she doesn't like she just does it out of instinct after she does a whole 5 minute monologue about how she doesn't believe in love. And so I thought that was so dumb that they didn't show it. I thought there was better ways to show their chemistry. Like, that's like the whole thing of the killers. It's like you had this chemistry, and that's why we went after you. And I was like, there was no chemistry in that moment. Like it actually was the least that was the least convincing thing you could have done to show me there was chemistry. Um
another moment similar to that, to with the like the kissing scene, is the again, it's the scene where she misses all the gunshots. I literally quoted, I said, yes, sign me up for all the goofy slasher fun, but that was egregious. It wasn't even like I literally like I did like the meme where like they all slap their hands on their face at the same time.
Yeah.
I was like, that's not even funny. Like it's not even
Yeah.
that's not even funny.
It's not even funny.
Up to that point, I'd have been like,
okay, this yeah, it's good. Like, la 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 la. And then I was like, that was stupid. That was completely like,
And he locked in.
and then the last con here, I said I don't really have a ton of cons other than there was an excess of cliche and silly moments that kind of sets the vibe of the movie. And yeah, if you don't rock with all that, it happens. So that's kind of how I wanted to end my pros and cons.
Fair enough. All right, Jack, you're up.
For me, this review is probably going to be a little shorter than Caleb's because I found myself agreeing with a lot of what he had to say. I think they were doing a lot of what Thanksgiving was trying to do and branch out to different holidays. So this is just Valentine's Day's crappy horror movie that is fitting for the vibe, but mildly fun. And so I actually didn't mind how this movie felt like a mix of rom-com and horror. I know a lot of horror movies try to add that romantic aspect into it, but I felt like it was a little more enjoyable here, as it made a lot more sense for our characters to be in that situation. I thought both leads had good chemistry together and were easily the most entertaining part of the movie. Um, Obviously, there were problems with the dialogue, but I thought the actors themselves had the chemistry, and pretty much all the humor that actually hits is credited to them. I especially enjoyed Mason Gooding, um, which he was in, the Scream remake, so he already has horror experience, and I think he actually is pretty good in slasher roles, and I would be happy to see him in more horror movies going forward. I am glad. I did want to make one note on the plot that I am glad that they went with the plot twist route rather than it just being like some random guy when they were like, I have no idea who it is. And then they just got on the ambulance. I was like, that's gonna be really dumb if they try to like close out this movie romantically and don't do anything else. Like, because what are we doing? However, I mean, I don't necessarily think the plot twist was that spectacular or anything, but it is a better route to go down, in my opinion. Um, I'm also in agreement with Caleb. I think the kills are actually pretty good when they actually happen. Uh, the visual effects, gore, it's pretty solid for a slasher movie, and they don't, do a bunch of stuff off camera and take the lazy route on a lot of their things. They just needed to do more with their concept, I think. As for the bad for me, I think, as I hinted to, the twist is about the most generic way you could have done the twist possible. They do the bare minimum by just literally having the characters show up before so you'll vaguely recognize them, be like, oh yeah, suppose. That was my only thought. I mean, at least one of them was the cop, but even her, it was just like, okay. Like, I'm not surprised because it's just some random character we didn't like build up at all. It's not like someone they trusted or like cared about. So it was just fine for me, the twist. It doesn't do that much special for me. Also, as we've already talked about, this film just kind of reeks of horror cliches. It really feels like a straight to Netflix movie that they just dropped out of nowhere. Um, like you turn it on with your buddies or whatever, and it's fine. And so that's not like exactly what you're shooting for when you make a movie, but it's acceptable to some level at the same time. So basically, just wasn't all that special for me. I already mentioned the writing is really not that great, and especially outside of the two leads, there's really nothing going on, in my opinion here. I don't care or could name any of the characters outside of them or any moments that happen without them, which isn't always necessarily important in a movie, but I feel like in a horror movie, you need to have more than, just one or two characters that people care about
No,
if
Monica
you're
was
actually going
terrible.
to try and make. Ooh.
The friend was awful.
It was
Completely
so
terrible.
annoying.
I know,
So
no, I'm
annoying.
saying you only had the two couple.
No,
You
I
need
agree.
more than that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And the
you
one
need
friend was terrible.
more. Yeah, you need more characters that you're like, oh shit, they're gonna die. When they don't even attack the friend. It's literally just the two, and neither of them are gonna die. So no one, that no one you care about in the movie is gonna die.
I cared about the
And it's just
hippies.
like, all right. The who?
I'm
The
kidding.
two that were having sex in the back of the van. I wanted them to die like 15 minutes earlier.
No, I actually went pee during that scene.
I mean, actually, a pretty good time to go.
Thank you,
I
Run
don't
Pee app.
have. I don't, do you wait? What?
You see it? You don't know that app? The Run Pee
What
app?
is it?
It has like 2 moments in a movie that like it's like good moments to go and pee.
I mean, I remember reading that for like when the Marvel movies came out in theaters, but at this point, I like
It was
we go
like
to see the monkey in Hard Eyes. It's like, oh, if I have to go to the bathroom, oh no.
well, I was thinking I'm by myself, so I can't ask you guys what happens, but I was like,
That's
shit,
fair. Yeah, anyway, to kind of wrap this thing up, this is just has a lot of the classic slasher movie logic that Gabe alluded to. I know Gabe is probably the biggest hater of that logic, but in this movie especially, it just sometimes it can be kind of fun if you are like accustomed to it, but this time it was kind of just more annoying than anything. And when it's that noticeable, you're just like you kind of just exchange looks, and you're like, all right, noted. And then my last thing, and this is probably the biggest thing, honestly, with this movie, is I thought they were going to do a lot more with their Heart Eyes concept and like branding him as, or that character as the iconic part of the movie. When you make a slasher, the thing you have to nail in the movie is the killer. And I thought the killer was like fine, like serviceable as a concept, but I already mentioned I thought the two leads were more entertaining. If you think of the best slashers like ever, like Scream and Halloween, the first thing you'll think of is Michael Myers with a ghost face. You're not like just name dropping every character that was in the movie. You have to nail your title character, especially if you want to make more movies, which I know a lot of us don't want all of these slasher sequels, but they won't even have the option to make one if they wanted to, because at least I don't think they will, because they didn't nail like the iconic main character. That's why you're not getting another Thanksgiving movie. It was fine, but there's not like some iconic character you're going to bring back. So that was kind of honestly the biggest miss for me, because I thought if they had the signature mask and the stuff, I thought they would maybe wrap that in and make that a more iconic thing, but it kind of didn't. So it's just all right.
All right, Tyler.
Well, this was probably the most prototypical slasher movie of all time, with on-the-nose twists and terrible plot armor. The opening of this movie, outside of the first kill, was a struggle to get through until Hard Eye showed up in her closet, which did catch me by surprise, like Caleb said. But come to find out, it was Detective Shaw in that moment, which I knew she was involved some way, shape, or form, but I refused to believe that she was the one in the closet. She's not 6'2" and jacked. I refuse to believe she's the one in that outfit. I refuse. The other guy was actually big and fit the mold much better. The amount of missed shots in this movie makes stormtroopers look like marksmen. The whole fling between Jay and Allie was not it and really cringy. The entire scene in the van took way too long and was absolutely the wrong place for that. The sex in the background was a bit funny, but still wrong place and wrong time to spill all their emotional problems. The IT guy being one of the hard eyes people was so obvious. The kills in this movie were decent. Jay was pretty funny in this movie. Hard Eyes was actually a pretty dope character, unlike what Jack thinks, apparently.
What was dope about him?
He was cool.
The
I like
mask
the
was
design
cool.
and everything. Yeah. I love the night vision in the police station. That was really cool. Other than that, I really got nothing else to say about this movie in a good way. There's my review.
I forgot to
That's
mention
fair.
one thing.
He's a man of few
the
words.
straw kill, terrible, very bad. When she kills him with the straw,
Oh, at the very end.
or her, I guess, with the
The
straw.
suck on this one, Jack.
I thought
That's
that was
what
really
I
bad.
said. I
That
said
was
she
so
should have said
bad.
suck on this.
That would've- if she
Instead
would've
of
said-
love
if-
hurts.
If she would have said that, I would have written that down as a con. If
Dude,
she would have
that's
said
such a
suck
better
on
line than
this,
love hurts.
At
Love
least
hurts,
love
you
hurts
could have
matches
said,
the theme of the movie instead of a
suck
straw
on this, it's a
suck
straw.
on this. That's the. I understand it.
You're literally trolling the killer as you kill him.
That would have been pretty funny. I like both, but that would have
That would go crazy.
Fuck
That's
off,
what I
dude.
would have
All
said
right.
if it was me.
Email Josh
okay.
Rubin.
Although my ass wouldn't have a stupid ass metal straw in my pocket.
Okay, well,
Don't really care about the environment.
we'll, we'll go ahead and do our overall little recaps here. They're spoiler free. I'll start with mine. To me, Hard Eyes was just a failed attempt at a genre blend. I thought it had the slasher element was clearly there, but the romance just completely overextended its stay to the point where I was at times forgetting this was a slasher and just watching a cheesy rom-com, and that's not what I paid for. Um, in terms of the slasher genre, I felt like nothing was really that crazy. The twist wasn't good, the plot armor was ridiculous, and the characters just never really had my interest at any point. There were some creative ways that they decided to go with like the actual Hard Eyes character, but all in all, I just was completely disappointed by pretty much everything in this movie.
And would you give it?
I gave it a 1 out of 5.
Okay. For me, I put in summary, I thought this was a pretty fun seasonal slasher. I was reminded of Thanksgiving from 2023, and it didn't like separate itself from that circle of film, which to me didn't have to be a bad thing. I thought it was entertaining and it's funny and had some creative kills, but yeah, it's overly goofy at points, and that's the type of movie it is. I didn't leave the theater standing in applause, but I didn't leave mad at all, and that's what I wanted from this. So I ended up giving this a 2.5 out of 5.
For me, this is a pretty unique and kind of fun genre blend of, or mixing of genres with rom-com and slasher, but at the same time, it manages to fall into every generic cliche or pothole it could fall into. And so it just kind of averaged out a little bit for me. Actually, a little below average for me, as I gave it a 2 out of 5.
Overall, this was a typical slasher movie that executed their uniqueness poorly. The bad guys were obvious, the love story was not good, and the plot armor dragged this movie out longer than it should have. They tried their hardest to give us a Halloween Scream blend of a movie, and it simply did not work. Outside of some funny moments from Jay and Hard Eyes being a badass, there's little to nothing good about this movie. I gave it 1 out of 5 as well.
Well, there we go. I mean, if you guys, obviously, I'm assuming anyone who's listening here has already seen the movie. Otherwise, they wouldn't have listened because I mean, not that we spoiled. It's not some like the Godfather type movie to get spoiled. But if you guys agree with someone in particular here, go ahead and let us know in the comments. But
Ooh, me.
Definitely not him.
Okay.
Just actively let us know in the comments that you disagree with Caleb.
all right, well, with that, let's go ahead and move on to the monkey review. So once again, I will be starting this one off. I wanted to start this one off with one of my favorite quotes from this movie. It's a bad magic killer monkey. What the fuck?
He's staring at the camera for audio only people.
I have very few words for what I just watched. This movie was mind-numbingly awful in every garbage way you can imagine. Was I laughing at times? Absolutely. Were a majority of those times intentionally caused by the movie? Not at all. There were far too many scenes where I would laugh out loud at the awful dialogue and the nonsensical plot or just the ridiculous acting. While I know that this film was trying to be funny at times and trying to be over the top, it just did not work for me at all. Instead of being perceived as a light comedy, kind of dark horror film type of thing, it came off as lazy and just moronic and just lacked horror in every sense. Nothing about this movie is scary, not even a little bit. Um, the jokes felt incredibly forced or just out of place. The acting was pretty much bad for everybody, I thought, really. And the plot was actually the worst thing I've ever seen in a, in quotes, horror movie. And it was significantly more funny than it was scary. However, the biggest issue with this film is just how empty it is. There's absolutely nothing to take from this film, and not that you should expect there to be, but there aren't any memorable scenes. There are no scary moments. There's no humor that actually is intentionally hitting. And worst of all, the in quote theme of everybody dying at some point is just awful. They try to apply that theme with the monkey and the way that it just mysteriously kills people, but instead you're just sitting here with a blank face after every kill. Like that was the dumbest thing I've ever seen. And it just happens over and over. I actually saw an interview today. I think Jack, I think you're the one who sent it, of the director saying that it just saying, yeah, the kills make no sense. It's like, okay, why'd you
Yeah,
do
he
it
was
then?
like, we're trying to make them funny.
It's like, how about we stop directing movies if that's what we're going to do? Because that's just terrible. There's really no way to put this other than this movie sucked. This pretty easily took the throne for the worst movie I've ever seen in a movie theater, and I pray that nothing ever surpasses this one. If it wasn't for me being at the theater with my friends for this, I would have left, and I've never even thought about leaving a movie before until this one. It was just the worst. This movie is just a waste of time, and I'm glad it's over. And one last thing I wanted to mention was you cannot get more on the nose of the stupid ass pale ghost on a pale horse walking across the road at the end. That was one of the dumbest things I've ever seen. And how they just don't even address it. And they're just like, okay, and they just drive away. Like, what are you? The monkey must be vanquished. That's all I got.
What a bar. How am I going to follow this up? All right. I'm going to do my best.
5 stars.
If you say you like it, I'll have to kill you. So
What a good movie.
I'll just dig right in. Through my two Osgood Perkins movies, I do appreciate his skill of atmospheric settings and camera work. I think it was synonymous with Long Legs. I think it's representative in The Monkey. I think he does a good job of like setting the scene and just the way he kind of just has an eye for the camera work. I think that's like his biggest quality. I think that's easily his best quality, in my opinion. I would say, generally speaking, to me, I thought the comedy was on the pro side. I don't think it's burst out laughter movie at all, but I did chuckle a couple times. Like I'm not gonna sit here and say I didn't laugh. I think just that kind of comedy sometimes works. Sometimes it's not as good. Like there was obviously points where you're supposed to laugh, and it didn't hit every time for me. But I was just more than often I was finding myself seeing it was a little funny. Most specifically, the cut to Chip's death. I thought that was one of the better.
That was
one of the better parts where it's like we should try it, and it doesn't just dung. It's just his face. I was like, okay.
I can't remember what the
kinda
scene
good.
was, but there was one scene that got me so good. It was when he like yelled at his son. He said something.
Oh, yeah.
I have that
I
written
know
down in my
you're talking
review.
about.
It's when it's
It's
the
when
thing
he
he
let's
keeps
make like
saying.
eggs and scramble.
Yeah, he's like his son's like freaking
Oh,
out, and he goes, "Let's
yeah.
make like eggs and scramble."
That part was hilarious.
That was the funniest moment of the movie. That got me good.
Yeah, but the chip death for sure for me. I thought the intensity when warranted was well done. Longlegs used it better, but the ant scene, for example, was very similar vibe wise, and I wanted to point that out as being a pretty solid scene as far as intensity. Just the lack of any sound was really well done, and that's what was happening a lot in Longlegs too. Tyler, do you remember like the cabin scene? That reminded me a lot of that, where there's nothing happening, and it's just like really quiet. That reminded me of that.
Yeah, that scene was haunting.
Yeah. I thought Theo Jims and actually the kid too did a pretty good job separating the characters, and their performances were good enough for me. Just being able to have two different characters played by the same person was pretty well done. Not like breathtaking or anything, but good enough. I thought Bill's plan, or I guess rather the twist of this movie, was all right. I appreciated it stuck with the revenge aspect of everyone dies, and it worked well as a callback to like Hal doing it. So I didn't think he was like a completely unmotivated villain. I think that would have made it like 10 times worse if it was just like, why the hell is he doing this? So at least they tried try with that. Finally, I think this movie is a pretty fun movie. Personally, it wasn't turned off. I like the multiple death scenes. I expected it. I thought they were creative and it worked for me, generally speaking. But now we shift to the game where we're going to agree a little bit more. One of the worst scenes of the entire thing, or a combination of, was the nanny death and the church scene. That was easily the worst death, and the commentary after it with the priest was mind-blowingly stupid. I was so dumb. It wasn't even like if they could have like established the theme any better at that point, it would have like maybe hit at all. But the fact that it's just a guy like bumbling about something that the mom just clears up anyways, that was a shockingly stupid scene. Like they actually had a chance to capitalize on that and make it like more of like an intense. And it wasn't even like if they're going for more comedy, which I don't even know what. I think it's supposed to be more comedic, but it wasn't even funny. Like that part right there is one of the parts where like you're supposed to be laughing, and it was just not funny. Like I was more angry with the priest scene. And as I mentioned in the pros, this might be the worst thing for me, was that the intensity was good when used right, but unfortunately, I think this movie mixed itself a little awkwardly between comedy and horror thriller, and it comes across corny when a serious scene did need to happen. Not saying it was necessarily bad, but they combated each other and forced it to not work. Like the fact that it was trying to be intense sometimes and trying to be funny at sometimes, they clashed way too hard. So when those funny scenes are supposed to be really funny, they're not as funny. And when those scenes are supposed to be super intense, they're not as intense. Just the way he sets up each scene to be like the peak of both, and then the come down is not as good. So I think they hate each other too bad. They combat, like I said, they combat each other. I thought the theme was all right, but I just don't think we do enough with it. To me, the surface level statement of everyone dies and that's life, it was just not intriguing, and it was executed really awkwardly in this film. I know it's supposed to be like how the multiple death scenes, but to me, that doesn't, like, we're not going beyond the surface of the statement. We're taking a blank statement and we're just throwing a bunch of deaths at it. And yes, while that's creative, and maybe I thought some of them were interesting, there's nothing happening narratively to where I'm like blown away by this statement and the story with it. Like they just didn't come together to be some grandiose statement and belief that Osgood Perkins has. It just didn't work as well as I think he was trying to. And I thought the pacing of this movie was not great at all. It's a pretty short movie, and it dragged heavily getting from the second to the third act. There's a part about 20, 30 minutes, maybe after when they show up to the house and after the realtor dies, I think. It's just like, can we just do the thing? Like, we are wasting a lot of time. We know where we need to go, and we're just wasting time at this point. So that was another thing. I have it as a comment, maybe it's a suggestion that he could have capitalized on, but I really wish we could have capitalized on the theme of like fatherhood and dependency of them that perhaps would have rooted out the evil we see happen in the film. It's kind of shown throughout the film with like Petey Jr. and the twins and Ricky, and how it's like kind of like hereditary type thing where it's like it's being passed down. And that's what Hal was trying to do with this kid by separating, was like, oh, it's in my genetics. And we barely surface level this. And if that's a way better theme and statement to work with than Everybody Dies. I think if we did something with like family lineage and how we are doing better as fathers, and that kind of, we could have taken away the monkey with that. It could have been like he resolves his story with his son, and the monkey goes away with it. And it could have been like a symbol for
Symbol, like a monkey symbol.
Oh my! It could have been like a representative of like a father being there for their children. And I think that would have been a great representative. But no, we don't do that at all. We kind of actually don't. We do the opposite. And speaking of which, Ricky is a horribly useless character who is purely used as a device to get them to the lair, because they tease his dad being like, how like he picks up the monkey to like cuss to his dad. We don't touch on that ever again. We don't even mildly do that again. It's so dumb, because if they would have touched on the fatherly theme, he could have actually been like a really important character. Instead, he's just like a goofy, like stoner who gets them to the lair as an undercover cop. Not funny at all. That was not a funny part. And since they don't delve into the thing with like fatherhood, he is useless. He is so dumb. I was so mad at this character. I was like, this guy sucks. Who is this guy? I was also not impressed with the reconciliation scene between the brothers, as all it took for Bill to consider this reconciliation was Hal saying it's his mom too. That's what got you over the line.
Doesn't he literally say like, "Oh yeah"?
Yeah,
He's like actually like brain dead. He's
it's like a
I guess he literally
spiel.
says like, I guess that would make her your mom.
Yeah.
It's like
there's like 4 minutes of dialogue of him like trying to
Yeah.
talk him down. It's like different point, and he says like, and also, it's my mom too. I was like, I was like,
so bad.
do not. That was so dumb. And then Gabe, you touched on it too. Why are we throwing the Pale Horseman on the end of this film? We didn't explore that concept at all, nor did we resolve it. So thanks. Cool reference, I guess.
Yeah, they literally just said it one time. They're like, "What if we put a pale horseman?"
I don't even remember them saying it. He
They
showed
said
up
it
like,
he
why
said it
is
like
it here?
he said it like once or twice. He called himself. He said something like, when they were talking about him saying he was like cursed or whatever. He said something like, I'm a pale horseman riding a pale horse."
He says that. Oh god,
Yeah, he says
I
that
did
in the
not even
movie.
remember him saying that.
He says some dumb shit about it, and you're
Yeah.
like, "Why would he say that?" And then they
You're like,
bring it
that
back,
made
and it's
you're
like,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
You're like,
Well,
nobody uses that term, and then
maybe-
they use it, and then they're like, here it is. And it's like,
"Here it
then they
is. You
just
get
look-
that payoff."
And then they
Get
just
that?
look. Then they just look at each other, and it just walks, and they just look at the pale horse, and the guy's like, "Hey," and like,
yeah.
And
So
then
maybe,
they go dancing.
so maybe my con still stands, but in a different way than I first said it. So take that with you as well.
it's the
Uh,
worst.
And then also, perhaps not necessary, but an explanation of the lore/magic of the monkey would have been appreciated, in my opinion.
They can't do that because there is no magic. It's just all
Yeah.
bullshit. So they can't do
Sure.
that.
And a couple other comments. The realtor was goofy. She was really overbearing, but not.
Yeah.
And I thought the monkey the music for the monkey was kind of cool. The actual sound was kind of fun. I don't know. So I'm done.
All right, Jack, you're up.
Yay. I'm gonna start this off with the first thing I wrote in my review, which is, this is my direct quote to Gabe. That was worse than I had imagined in my worst case scenario. We talked about it before we went in. We're like, "Oh, what do you guys think you'll be?" And I was like, "Oh, worst case scenario, I'll probably give it like a 1 or 2," and it was just a little worse than I had hoped for. And because I thought that, everyone's been hyping up Osgood Perkins, and I heard pretty good things about Long Legs, so I was kind of excited. I was hoping it would surprise me, but no. The the very minimal pros I have here, uh, my direct quote is, "I suppose I'll throw them a bone and say their visual effects are actually pretty good," which I think Caleb mentioned something about that as well. Um, I would also agree with Caleb again and say that I did like enjoy the music choices that they make for the most part with the monkey, and even outside of that, like the songs they use, I think work pretty well. And then honestly, I got to give credit anytime an actor plays multiple roles. Theo James does play two different characters that he does have to portray in different lights. They're not just like the exact same. So that is an impressive thing to do as an actor, even if it's here. As for the bad, I I'm gonna have to condense some of this, but I cannot express how much I hated the tone of and the message that Gabe has already laid into with the people die, that's life, and just exploring absolutely nothing else other than that, and just using that as an excuse to do whatever the hell we want throughout the whole movie. It just makes it so you don't really give a shit about any characters in the movie, and you already know what's gonna happen constantly throughout, which really takes away any of the like I know a lot of their deaths they're trying to be funny by making them unexpected. They're not that unexpected. It you know that some after like the first time or second time it happens, you hear the monkey whack the drum one time, you're like, okay, so some random bullshit's gonna happen and someone's gonna blow up. Like it gets repetitive. It like Gabe mentioned, it just keeps happening over and over and over again. And Caleb, you took the words out of my mouth. Any lore or like logic or backstory on the monkey at all, if it's cursed, where it came from, why, there's no resolution at all with it, which I don't, and it's because they have no intentions ever of explaining that because it's just there. It's just there to be their plot device. And it's not, like you guys mentioned as well, it's just not scary. So it's not scary. It doesn't make any sense. We don't know, have any idea why it's there, and it's uncompelling. All major problems, even if they nailed it with it being funny, everything else would still be a major problem. So, yeah, that really just left me at a loss for a lot of this. Um, like I mentioned, the characters are just there's nothing to like or build around for your own viewing pleasure. It leaves you once again, like Gabe mentioned, it just leaves you angry at the movie that it really could have been a lot more, and it just isn't. And you guys were railing into it so badly that we didn't even mention this. They really leaned into the narration of in this movie, like just monologuing and dropping exposition because they go back and forth constantly. This movie is only like an hour and a half, maybe a little longer, and they cut back and forth all the time with narration and exposition because there's nothing happening other than just random bullshit deaths. There's just not a story that exists there. So we just have to listen to Theo James read off a paper and explain all of what's happening. And that's what results in him. I don't even think he's like that a bad actor, but the stuff they're making him put into it. Like the you heard the direct quotes that Gabe dropped on us that he did not come up with that. So someone had to write that and look at it and approve it and think, yep, that is going to work. That is going to nail it. And so I also mentioned that really the comedy, this is what they needed to hit because all those other things weren't even present. And yeah, it hit sometimes. Really didn't hit that often. A lot of the times they were trying to get it from like say the idiot priest or whatever. They thought that was going to be funny. No, not really. The like absolutely terrible parenting that you just see constantly. Like I guess it's kind of awkward, but really it's not that funny. It's just like okay, that sucks. And then just every character is like a complete idiot and makes it just doesn't make any sense for you as a viewer. And so lastly, I think at the end of the day, the monkey was like because this is based off a short story by Stephen King, right? So this is just not a story that's meant to be a full adaptation movie. I think the monkey's like a decent horror concept. I don't think it's a movie concept. I think this is something that is like and this is the same reason I'm not interested in these movies because I think this is more something along the lines of like an Annabelle or something from The Conjuring that's like in the movie, not the movie. It's like supporting in the horror of the movie. And that's why I've never watched the Annabelle movies because I've seen all the Conjurings. I really like them, but I'm like, how good is a movie going to be that's just about an inanimate object that is just cursed? Uh, and we don't even know if the monkey, well, obviously it's cursed, but we don't know how or why. So it just doesn't work for you as a compelling like centerpiece to your story. And like it's pretty clear for us, it just disappoints. So that's where I'm at.
Is the monkey sentient,
Yeah, exactly. We don't kind of
or is it just
like
cursed?
it gets mad at him when he like tries to force it to kill his brother and it like retaliates.
He's trying to like
But is
sexually
that a
assault it pretty
spirit?
much.
Is that a spirit that's
That
controlling
scene,
it?
that
Or is
scene
it the
was
monkey?
uncomfy. I did not like that scene, by the way, when he was like trying to force his hand. Bro was getting, yeah, it's
Yeah,
messed up.
and then he was like, "How are you so strong?" And then it like throws him across the room, and
Yeah.
it just nothing makes sense
The monkey
in the
was
movie.
clip farming.
Everything in the
Stop.
movie is just built around everything in the movie is just built around them trying to make the most ridiculous death scenes you could come up with, and that's just not enough for a horror movie. It's not.
All right, Tyler, you're up.
It's not enough.
All right. Well, I'm going to start by saying they should have named this movie The Stupid Monkey because that movie was stupid.
Wow, got
Holy
him.
hell.
That
That was
freaking
better.
got him.
That was better writing than what was in the movie.
Let
Thank
this
you,
guy
thank you,
be
thank
like a reporter at
This
the
is your
Oscars.
guy,
Just like
Hollywood.
The lines in this movie were some of the worst lines I have ever heard. None of these characters were appealing. All the deaths were stupid. The shotgun death was stupid and extremely unrealistic. The mom's death was stupid. The babysitter's death, how does that even happen? The aunt's death, why are we putting her face that close to a gas stove top? It doesn't make sense. The pool death might genuinely be the worst one. Exploding on impact like
Did-
that. That's
Did you
so
see the
funny.
interview thing I sent today that Gabe was talking about? Where he says that stuff, he's like, "Yeah, that couldn't happen, but we just made it happen."
It's so stupid. Also, why was everyone so chill about people dying? The boys witnessed their babysitter's head chopped off and they just shrugged it off like it was nothing. Hal witnessed that realtor's body exploding in front of him, and again, no reaction. Bill's death,
Light
both
work.
Hal and his son, nothing. Instead of crying or being in utter shock that his brother and Petey's uncle's head exploded, they decided to go dancing. I try not to judge movies' approach to how people deal with loss, but that funeral scene for their mom was really hard to watch. When he stands up and just like, "Okay, mom, wake up." That was difficult to watch. I was laughing at how bad this movie was rather than how funny it was. And simply the only funny moment was when he screams out, "Let's make like eggs and scramble." That was
so funny.
that was the funniest part of the entire movie. And honestly might be my only pro.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, well, we'll go ahead and do our little summary recaps here. So, yeah, within the first 30 minutes, I think this movie made itself very clear that it had no intentions to be a genuinely good movie. However, after I heard the line, "It's a bad magic killer monkey," at this point, I believe I began losing brain cells as I kept watching. The best part about this film is laughing at it. They tried really hard to do the unserious humor that would just take over and do most of the work, but about halfway through, you find yourself laughing at them significantly more than you are laughing with them, and that is absolutely a bad thing for a film like this. The line, "the monkey must be vanquished," is very true, but not in the sense that they meant it. This movie must be vanquished, so no one ever has to watch it. I gave this a half star out of 5. If I could give it 0, I probably would.
Well done, Gabe.
Thanks.
Nice. Well, good
Thanks.
callbacks there, Gabe.
Thanks.
In summary for me, this definitely was a little disappointing based on my excitement scale. I still have faith in Osgood Perkins based on his two main films up to this point, Long Legs and this, as he, to me, has proven he is able to work the camera in a stunning way and can utilize some decent moments in horror and comedy. But tonally, this movie falls flat, and the comedy and horror for this movie combat each other too harshly for it to warrant being a good movie. I did give it a 2 out of 5. So I don't think it's good. I don't think it's average. It's below average. But I think it's a little harsh to say it's the worst movie you've ever seen.
I said in theaters, but it probably is the worst movie I've ever seen.
So, but that's where I'll call it.
All right, Jack, you are up.
You are up. All right. For me, this movie is just stretching such a thin concept over a feature-length runtime that just does not work whatsoever for me. As I mentioned earlier, it's just an excuse. Everything built around it is just an excuse to make the most ridiculous and chaotic deaths that you've ever seen that don't even make sense. And so they try to visually appeal to you and comedically appeal to you, but for the large majority, it just does not hit whatsoever.
Would you give it?
Yeah, I gave it a half out of 5. I forgot that I was obligated to rate that.
Yeah. I said, in summary, this movie falls flat on its ass with every unique death or funny moment they try to make. This movie is actually horrible, awful story, terrible lines, and overall bad acting. I thought the movie wasn't going to be good based on the trailer, but my God, did it manage to do so much worse than I expected. The only positive from this movie was that the monkey was actually haunting to look at, and I wish I never watched this movie. 0 out of 5. Or 0.5 out of 5, sorry.
Yeah.
Damn, I thought he was breaking the scale.
Me too.
I thought he was too.
Whoa!
I
Rebel.
was like, he did it. He has done it once. He might do it again. You never know.
He was deviating.
Yeah, it was. All right. Well, if you guys agreed with any of the things that we were saying, we hope you guys let us know in the comments. Honestly, if you listen to this review having not seen it yet, you now know not to go see this movie unless you, I don't know, maybe Caleb swayed you to at least give it a shot.
I don't
But
think it's good. I'm just saying. And
no, I'm
there's
not.
some
I'm just
rewarding
saying,
features to it.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Maybe somebody's been convinced to at least give it a shot. But it was definitely kind of a movie. So, yeah,
February
I
proving
mean,
itself to be cooking again.
something like that. All right. Well, as always, really appreciate you guys listening to the episode. Make sure you guys check out our other socials as I will be posting this very soon. This will be coming up soon with both of our reviews on Instagram. But as always, thank you guys for listening, and we will catch you in the next episode.